Yeah, hi. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you guys are joining, and welcome to our webinar series, Experts Speak, in association with the IABSC, the International Association for Business Analytics Certification. And today we have with us our founder for IABSC, Mr. Hans Wokers. He's joining us from the Netherlands, and he will be introducing the speaker for today, Ms. Suviana. Over to you, Hans.
Sorry?
Yeah, you can start your introduction of.
Okay, I had a problem with linking in, so I need to restart my complete machine. That took a while. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Hans Volkers, co-founder, director of IBEC, and it's my pleasure to introduce to our keynote speaker from Finland, Suviana Greku. Suviana works with boards and senior leaders on high-stake decisions about how they use AI in their organizations, especially where risk, trust, and reputation are on the line. She's the founder of the AI for Change Foundation, a European initiative that brings together leaders and practitioners who want technology to serve people as well as the common good. What I appreciate in Suviana's approach is how practical and grounded she is. She helps organizations turn uncertainty about AI into clear direction, simple governance structures, and decisions they can explain, not just to regulators, but even more to their teams and customers. At the same time, she's very outspoken about the need to avoid automating harm at scale. And she puts more focus on keeping human judgment and responsibility in the loop. Today, Suviana will share how we can make AI effective without losing the human side, our ethics, creativity, and accountability. I invite you to listen with curiosity, to challenge, and to use this session as a chance to reflect on how your organization can build AI solutions you would be proud to stand behind. Suviana, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Hans, and thank you for the warm welcome. And good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are joining from. Welcome and thank you for joining for this webinar. So my name is Suviana Greku. I am AI governance advisor, and I work with Nordic and European leaders and boards, basically helping them to turn AI uncertainty into decisions they can defend strategically, ethically, and publicly. And I do that through strategic advisory, workshops, and keynotes. And this spring, for example, I designed and delivered a trust architecture workshop for the European Commission Policy Lab. And much of that, what you hear today, comes actually from that. And I'm also founder of AI for Change Foundation. So AI for Change Foundation is a Finnish nonprofit working to build a more responsible and human-centered future of AI. And our goal is to expand the AI conversation beyond the questions of technology and efficiency towards trust, decision-making, business, and societal impact. And we bring together decision makers, companies, researchers, and experts to help ensure that AI is understood and used responsibly, competitively, and human-centric way. So in a short, I spend most of my time in the rooms where AI strategy, governance, and real people's life basically collide. And I really want to open this with the promise. This is not going to be a talk about regulation. There will be no legal articles on the screens or any compliance checklist to memorize. I will tell you how this works. Because when I started my foundation, I started it because I was angry. I was angry that we are making the same mistakes with AI that we made with social media. Because if you remember the promise of the internet, it was supposed to connect us, bring us closer, and basically make us more human to each other. And in many ways, it did exactly the opposite. It actually polarized us. It gave us these kind of filter bubbles and algorithms that profit from our outrage. And now we are doing it again with something even more powerful. So I'm Finnish. Finland is one of the most trusting societies in the world. We trust our institutions, we trust each other, and we trust that the systems are designed for the common good. So I know what trust looks like when it works. And I can tell you, trust is a single most undervalued asset in the entire AI conversation. Because if you look at the title of this session, trust, accountability, and human oversight, these three words, they appear almost every AI strategy document ever written. And these three words are almost nobody can define in practice. And when I ask organizations, what does human oversight mean in your company? The honest answer is usually silence. And when I ask, who is accountable when your AI gets it wrong? The answer is usually a very long pause and then just several people pointing at each other. So that is what we are going to do for next 40 minutes. Turn these three words from basically from poster material into things that you can actually build. And here's what I want that you will leave with today. Basically a practical framework, which I call it a trust architecture, that you can apply next week, whether you're a leader deciding what AI to adopt, an engineer building on it, or just somebody who is starting their career in this field. And I will show you why most AI initiatives fail at the trust stage, the three structural attention that makes trust so hard, and the four dimensions that make it work, what real human oversight looks like, and 5-step starting plan you can begin next Monday morning. So let's get into it. I want to start something that might seem obvious, but we keep getting wrong. Trust is not something you can declare into existence, and yet that is what we are exactly trying to do. You cannot do it just with a regulation or with policy PDF, not with an ethics statement on your website. And almost everywhere, responsible AI is treated as a compliance box. It's something that is for the legal team or box to tickle basically before the lunch. And I do understand why. Rules like the European Union AI Act, they matter, and many of the organizations, they need to meet them even outside of Europe. But compliance and trust answer completely different kind of questions. Compliance asks, is this system allowed? And trust asks, do I feel comfortable relying on this? And those two don't always move together. You can have an AI system that is fully compliant. I mean, technically correct, audited, documented, and aligned with every single regulation. And still, people refuse to use it. It could be a customer service bot that customers immediately try to escape. Because how many times all of us, we have typed in that customer service bot, like, please, can I talk with the real human being? So we see this concrete pattern constantly. And let me give you an example. So if two companies would deploy essentially the same AI tool, meaning the vendor is the same, the capability is the same, and basically the similar use case, in first company, it could quietly disappear just one morning. No explanation what it does with people's data, no answer what happens to my role, or no way to question its outputs. And within a couple months, the usages is basically collapsing. And in second company, the teams are already involved before the rollout. The system's purpose and limits are really stated clearly. Someone was named as the owner, and there was an obvious way to flag out bad inputs, which people actually used, and which lead to visibly fixes. So the technology is the same in both examples, but the outcome is completely different. And the difference was never the model, it was a difference in the relationship. And if you notice in the second company example, they didn't write a longer policy because trust really doesn't come from documents. Because I have seen organizations with the most beautiful AI ethic principles on their website and basically total distrust in the workflow. Because employees, they compare that poster, that policy on their daily experiences. And the experience wins, of course, every single time. And this is the part when most of the business leaders in the audience to make it think, the biggest problem inside organization right now is not necessarily the capability and not necessarily the regulation, but about the adoption of AI. Because study after study, and of course with my own experience with companies, they say the same thing. Most AI initiatives stall not because the model didn't work, but because the people who was supposed to use it, they didn't trust it. So the question I want to put on the center of this webinar is not how we make AI, how to make AI more compliant or anything like that, but how do we design the relationship between people and these AI systems that the trust is built from the beginning. Because if we think about it, technology is never neutral. Every AI system reflects the values of whoever built it, what it optimized for, what it can ignore, who it serves. And if you don't decide those values clearly, someone else defaults decides for you. And usually those values are engagement, speed, and cost. And now when people talk about AI risk, the conversation usually jumps to 2030. AGI, super intelligent, like scenarios that feel abstract and really far away. But I'm not here to talk about 2030. I'm here to talk about what's happening in your organizations and with your data this week. Because AI is already making and shaping decisions about people's lives. For example, who gets shortlisted for job, who gets a loan, and what rate. And those insurance claims get flagged, performance scores gets scored, and how the risks are basically assessed. And since these are not like futuristic cases, they are actually something that is underneath every single day. And often these tools are in the organization, never thought that they were thinking as AI decision systems. And the second thing what is happening inside of the organization that nobody basically planned is the shadow AI. Your employees are already using generative AI tools every day. basically pasting customers' data into chatbots, drafting contracts, summarizing confidential documents with or without permission. And when surveilled, a majority of the employees who use AI at work admit that they don't always disclose it. And if we think what this means, that the AI adoption in your company is actually bigger than in the official picture, invisible in your governance and driven entirely by individual convenience. And I don't think that's necessarily like anything to do with discipline, but this is just what happens when the official path is slower and less trusted than the unofficial one. And also, if we think about what happens on the receiving side, if a person experiences on decision they don't understand, made by a system they cannot question, with the outcome that actually changes their life. And on paper, that system might be compliant. But the person experience is that I was rejected. Nobody can tell why, and there's no one to appeal to. And this is exactly when trust start to erode, and it's erodes basically quietly, and this makes, of course, the customers are leaving. And of course, for companies, this is creating a really painful double blind. You carry a high compliance burden, meaning the documentation, audits, legal review, and you still get low trust and low adoption. And that is really, really difficult place to compete from. Because from long run, these AI systems that gonna actually win are not the ones that work the best in the actual demo, but they are the ones that people actually are willing to use, rely, and defend. And also, let me make it more human for an example. Because if you imagine that you apply for a job and you really want this job, and a few minutes later you get an email that it was automated, like rejection, but no reason, no contact, no way to ask basically why. And if you imagine the same person is sitting maybe a year later in their company deciding whether to adopt an AI screening tool, how do you think they're gonna vote? Because every opaque decision in your system make today is training basically somebody's instinct about AI for the next decade. So the trust you burn now, it doesn't really come back when you need it the most. And also trust is not created in the legal department, it's created in the experience every single time when the person interacts with your system, which raises the obvious question. If trust matters so much, why is it so hard to build? And if trust were easy, nobody would have it, of course. It's hard because of these three structural tensions. And I want to name them precisely because once you see them, you will recognize them in your own organization immediately. So basically, tension one is the speed versus legitimacy. So building genuine building, it takes time, like consulting people who are affected, explaining, adjusting, and basically earning the acceptance. But the problem with AI, with this era, that AI really doesn't wait. The pressure to create, to build, innovate is huge. Your competitioners are deploying. Your board is asking about your AI strategy, and by the time you have aligned all this with everyone, into one approach, basically 3 new tools have appeared. So the problem is, if you move fast, you lose legitimacy, which means that people feel that AI was done for them, not with them. And they respond in the way people always respond when things are done for them. They of course resist. But if you move slow and you basically lose the relevance, the business roads around you, the shadow AI cap fills the gap. Like every organization deploying AI is trapped between these 2 impossible pressures. And most of them switch between the extremes, basically year of reckless speed and then incident and then basically year of paralysis. And neither of these builds trust. And then we have the tension 2, which is accountability diffusion. This one really shows up at the moment when something goes wrong. An AI system makes, for example, a harmful call in hiring, credit, or in customer service. And now becomes to ask the simple question, who is responsible? And you can watch what happens. The model vendor usually say, we just provide the technology. Deployment is your responsibility. And the data science team, they say that we build this, what you basically ask for us. And the business unit says we follow the vendor's guidance. Frontline employees say the system told me so, and everyone is just responsible for only for their own piece. And no one's really responsible for the outcome. I call this accountability diffusion, and this is the single fastest way to destroy trust. Because when harm has no owner, people conclude correctly that the system was never designed with them in the mind. And notice this is not because people are necessarily evil, because no one really intended this. But every person in this chain was only responsible for their own piece. And that's exactly why it makes it dangerous. Responsibility that has been sliced so thin that it just basically evaporates. And yes, regulation try to fix this by distributing the duties across the life cycle. Basically, developers, they have responsible for building it safely. Deployers have responsibility for using it correctly, and users have a responsibility to follow the instructions. And on paper, that looks reasonable. But in practice, when a person is harmed, they don't want a supply chain diagram, but they want someone who is actually responsible for. And the tension 3 is precaution versus innovation. The instinct to be careful is right. I mean, you don't want to deploy anything that you cannot stand behind. But when it's taken too far, it produces what I called endless proof of concept. Nothing ever gets shipping, no learning, and eventually your best people just using unsanctioned tools under the desk, which is the worst of the all worlds. So these opposite extremes, deploy everything and apologize later, of course, destroys trust even faster. So neither pure caution nor pure speed build trust. But here's the point of naming all trees, because these tensions are structural. You cannot solve them by working harder or hiring more people to do compliance or writing longer policies. but you can actually solve them by designing the systems differently from the start, which is exactly what the framework I'm about to show you is for. So here's what I propose instead. I call it trust architecture. These 4 dimensions that determine whether people trust an AI system. And let me be clear, none of these words are new, and for sure you have heard them before. The problem is not that you don't know them. The problem is that we treat them as a separate checkboxes, which are basically owned by 4 different teams, instead of one system that has to work together. Trust is what emerges when all of these 4 are present. If you move any of these, it collapses. So basically, first is, of course, transparency. People understand how and why decisions are made. And I mean understand, not that we publish 40-page module documentation that nobody reads on our website. But transparency that builds trust is user-facing. When the system makes a call that affects someone, they can see in plain language what was based on and what would change the outcome. For example, if a loan is declined, the person learns why and what they could do differently. So if you think about in your own organization for these AI systems, could it be effective person and you get actually an answer today? In most organizations I work with, the answer is no, not because people decide to necessarily hide it, but because nobody ever designed that basically for this question. And here's also useful test. If you cannot explain a system's decision to the person affected in 3, plain language sentences, some of these things are true. So either you don't understand your own system well enough, or the system shouldn't be making that decision unsupervised. And both of these are useful things to discover before your customers discover them for you. And the second is accountability. For every consequential AI system, there should be one person who can say, I own what this system does. And when it gets something wrong, fixing it lands on my desk. And this is basically the direct antidote for the accountability diffusion we just talked about. And if you notice, this actually costs nothing. It's not technology investment. This is more like a management decision you could do, this week. Something interesting happens in the moment that you name the owner. Suddenly somebody's asking questions, a hard question from the vendor, and people start to read the reports, and people start to push before these use cases creeps beyond the system that it was designed for. So the ownership doesn't just assign blame after the fact, it changes behavior before anything goes wrong. And that is actually the point. And third is predictability. People trust what they can anticipate. If your AI gives a different answer every Tuesday, or the vendor silently just updates the model and the behavior shift overnight, trust can then actually erode quite quickly, because the users cannot build reliable workflows around the system that keeps changing under them. And if you think about your colleague that you trust the most at work, the one thing about behavior you can predict. You know how they will react, what they deliver, and where their limits basically are. And systems work in the same when it comes to trust. And systems earn trust exactly the same way. The predictability in practice means that the version changes are announced, behavior changes are explained, and there's no silent updates to systems people depend on. And with generative AI, this is genuinely the hardest dimension. Anyone who was built on top of the large language models knows the experience of the model update quietly changing everything on downstream, which is why it deserves the most attention and not the least. And the last one is value alignment. This is the question almost nobody asks. What is this system actually? What is this actually system for? Not what risks are we managing, but what are we optimizing for? Because every AI system optimizes for something. If you don't define it, you will inherit the default, and that is usually engagement or cost. And the system will pursue that goal with the total commitment, including the ways you never intended. So, for example, in customer service bot, which is optimized for closing tickets fast, will learn that it will start to close tickets without solving problems. So the goal should be written down and very visible, and let them shape every single design question. And if it's not clear, just pause. People usually eventually discover what the system truly optimized for, because they can experience it. And the gap between what you claim and what you optimize is measured in lost trust. So these 4 dimensions, transparency, accountability, predictability, and value alignment, they are familiar, but together they are as a one design system. That is the difference between AI people tolerate and AI people can actually trust. Now, the human oversight. This is in every AI policy, every framework, every vendor deck. And this is the most misunderstood idea in responsible AI. So I want to spend a few minutes making it clear. Here's what human oversight usually looks like in practice. There's a person who is sitting in front of a cube and clicks approve 200 times per day on recommendations that have no time, no information, and no authority to question. That is not oversight, and in my opinion, that is actually worse than nothing, because it creates an illusion of control while adding a human to blame when things go wrong. And there's a name for what happens into that person. It's automation bias. When a system is right, most of the time, humans stop checking, because that is basically how our brains work. And one good example of this comes from aviation. Cockpits have been highly automated for decades, and aviation is one of the safest industries right now. But not because pilots watch the autopilot approve everything, but because the industry was designed the human role deliberately. Pilots know exactly which situations demand their judgment. They train for disagreement with the automation, and the system is built expecting them to take over. The same thing should apply to AI system. The human role was engineered with the same seriousness as the autopilot itself. And so I think a real human oversight should look like with 4 design choices. Basically, it should be tied, the decision should be tied by consequence. So not every AI decisions needs a human. For example, spam filtering, no, but deciding who gets job, who gets fired, promoted, who gets credit, absolutely yes. Because you can map your AI use cases, how much a wrong human decision would cause to this person affected. And put your human attention where the stakes are the highest, and you can automate the rest with confidence. And also give the overseas real authority. If a human in the loop must have a time, the information, and critically the organizational permission to disagree with the system. And if overriding the AI requires courage, then your oversight is broken. And it's really healthy to measure your override rate. And it's one of my favorite practical tests that you can actually run it in next week. If your humans override to AI is 0% all the time, that's how you know that your oversight is not real, because no system is that good. And if they override consistently, then you know that your system is not ready. So a healthy override rate, it's a proof that is genuine human judgment is happening. And this should be tracked just like any other accuracy. And of course, the contact support, that loops that go back to the same bot, that really doesn't count. The appeal path is where your system's trustworthiness becomes visible to the outside world. And if you notice that all of these 4 design choices, what they have in common, none of these are machine learning problems. They are design and management decisions. Human oversight is not technical feature you can buy. It's basically organizational capability that you can build. And the people who can design this capability well, they are rare and increasingly in demand. So it's a skill set and it's completely learnable. So let's make this fully practical. If you can take responsibility for AI in your organization, this is exactly how you can become valuable. And these are 3 moves that you can do. So one is, of course, inventory. Find every place AI is already making or shaping decisions in your organization. In every organization I have done this, they found more than they actually expected. And you cannot govern what you haven't basically mapped. And second, name an outcome owner for every consequential system on that list. one person by name. And again, remember, this costs nothing and basically can change so many things. And 3, tire the consequence by the higher stakes decisions about people who get human oversight and appeal paths. So low stake automation gets monitoring, and don't spread your attention too evenly, spread it by the impact. And 4, make transparency user-facing. For each higher stake system, write it in the plain language explanation an infected person would receive. Because if you cannot write it, that tells something important actually about the system. And the last one is to measure trust. Not just accuracy, but also the adoption rates, override rates, appeals, and their outcomes. Accuracy tells you how the model works, but these numbers tell you whether people trust it. And I would recommend to put them on the same dashboard. And practical note on this, that don't try to do everything at once. Pick one system, ideally what matters but isn't on fire, and run it through with the other 5 moves as a pilot. And I think you will learn more from covering one system probably than from writing all these frameworks at the same time. And the same pattern works at the organization scale. Involve people affected early, the requires, analysts, the customers, and because trust is not something you can add at the end of the system, but you have to build it on how decisions are made from the beginning. And before I close, one wider thought I would like to speak about it, because right now there are competing models of AI emerging in this world. One if that is move fast, break things, and let the market decide, optimize for innovation. Other parts is move with control, optimize for stability. And there's also third possibility, which is not the fastest, not the most aggressive, but the model that where AI is deployed in the ways that people actually accept and choose. And I believe the third model will win in the end. And let me tell you why this matters to me personally. I'm 34. I will be in my 50s when I see the full consequences of the AI decisions made right now in every organizations and companies this year. And we could accept that AI development just happens, that deployment goes however vendors decide, and the governments will do the damage control afterwards. And a lot of people have made peace with that, but I haven't, because I have seen what happens when systems are built without clear purpose, when people live with technology they don't understand, and serving goals that they actually never agreed to. And it ends, with trust breaking down. And here's the thing, the speed and efficiency narrative, or what this narrative always misses, that people don't actually choose what is fastest. They choose what they trust. You can see this in every example in your everyday life, like what kind of brands you buy and so on. And whoever in this audience understand this, an organization that understand this will win the next decade, because it's not always about the biggest models, but building a system that people actually are willing to rely on. And wherever you are in this audience, a leader deciding what to adopt, an engineer deciding what to build, or just someone who is very early in your career deciding what to become, you are part of this deciding whatever AI is happening to people, or something that people shaped deliberately. And the window that we have for that choice is still open, but it won't stay open forever. So thank you. And if what I covered something today that your organization is actively resting on, feel free to message me or connect with me on LinkedIn. Looking for your questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Soumya. I really appreciate it. We'll try and take a few questions at whatever time we are left with. So we have one, Lillian from Kenya. He's asking, like, how do organizations make sure that AI is fair and does not discriminate against certain groups? I think I'll club it with one more question, which is similar to it. Naveen is asking like the same question in a different words. Should AI systems be audited for bias?
Yes, definitely. And I feel like this is something that is getting more attention. Every single month it's improving, and the companies are starting to realize that AI can discriminate and so on. But it's really important for every organization to take this seriously and build this from beginning, because it's, of course, these systems are built by humans, and of course we have our own biases always based on these systems. So yeah, this is something that it's improving a lot, but of course we are still not there yet. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. We'll pick up one more. Which industries currently have the strictest guardrails, like, in terms of responsible AI requirements? Any particular industries which is like, maybe you're aware of? Healthcare, and which
Yeah,
industry?
definitely healthcare is the strictest when it comes. Of course, there's a human's life on the stake, so that is, of course, like the strictest. But of course, I would say things like finances, they are also quite strict when it comes to money laundering, anti-fraud, and so on. But still, health is the most strictest, because the people's life are on the stage.
There's one question from Rosilva asking, will autonomous AI agents override human decisions? It's a valid question, because recently I can recollect, like, some engineers from Anthropic, they actually gave a bait to the AI agent to cheat the system, and that the agent took the bait, and it started blackmailing the human being for some illegitimate affair he had with some office colleague, and so many things it picked up from the email which the agent had access to. So yeah, that's a very valid question.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like we are jumping on these AI agents a little bit too fast when it comes to safety, because we have seen these examples that you lost your money overnight because you gave it agent access to your bank details and your cards. So yeah, it sounds cool if you think about it, like what an agent can do for you. But we are still in the baby shoes when it comes to AI agents, and the risk, they are really real. Right now, I think we need to pay attention more about the safety and what you are actually given access to. to these AI systems, because most of things you don't actually understand what you're agreeing to, and bad things can really happen if you allow them to hijack your whole computer.
Yeah. And we have a couple of more questions. I think we have one, Mr. G.D. Singh. He's not asking a question, but I think he's making a statement. He says, besides auditing, I personally believe a continuous and ongoing monitoring system should be in place. When that too, he's referring to the question when we asked whether AI systems needed to be audited. He's just making a statement. So we'll take a couple of more questions.
Mhm.
How can organizations effectively become AI automation and meaningful with human oversight, but without significantly slowing down?
Sorry, can you
the-
repeat the question? I couldn't hear
Yeah.
the
How can organizations effectively balance AI automation with human oversight without slowing down the decision making?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
I think every organization is balancing with this. Like, of course, speed and these trendy AI tools make it appealing. Everybody want to move fast with this. But like I mentioned also in this talk, the decisions that must remain only. That decisions are actually decided by humans. That is something that organizations should take really seriously, and don't take this lightly. Let AI systems to make decisions, especially when it affects things like credit score, hiring, and so on. So yeah, it sounds fancy that you can actually automate something like that, and what kind of time you can save with that. But it's a serious cost when it comes to automate these kind of decisions.
Yeah, thanks. Just one last question. Actually, I have my own question inside this. There's one Vamsi Kumar asking how to manage risks while you're using third-party foundation LLM models.
So you
Now,
manage risk when.
what are the how to manage risks when you're using third-party foundation models like your OpenAI and Anthropic Claude? Actually,
Mhm.
I want to bring in what really happened yesterday with this company called Palantir, the company which is owned by Mr. Alex Carr. He actually came and he said that, like, people who are using tokens, selling tokens for people to use AI, like from ChatGPT and Anthropic Claude, he said that, like, organizations are going ahead and putting all their intellectual property into the prompts, and they're giving away their intellectual property to the thing without knowing whether that company itself will use that intellectual property to duplicate and create another company. They don't have any kind of guarantees to make whether they're putting their own workflows and their ideas into the prompts. But right now with OpenAI and with Anthropic, we have no guarantees because they're third-party LLMs. But now Mr. Karp actually is telling from Palantir that he's working with NVIDIA to create a new sovereign kind of a model where people's intellectual property will not be at the mercy of the third-party LLMs. Yeah, this is one question even I want to ask you. This is a new
Yeah,
development which happened yesterday.
it's really interesting ones. And if you think about it, that you are basically using, let's say, ChatGPT or Claude, that is really important to understand their like read their policy, what they don't recommend you to put in there. But the problem is that people don't read this. They just try to take shortcuts wherever it's convenient, and so on. And also when it comes, for example, wipe coding, if you're building something, a cool AI product using wipe coding and so on, and you basically take the IPA, you cannot know what kind of roads it will take, and so on. In theory, this sounds like really cool business idea, but there are huge risks that you cannot manage. And of course, when it comes to cost, you cannot rely on what it comes to these costs later on. And of course, what we have seen recently, you cannot also rely on that this company is gonna provide their services later. Yeah, we saw what happened with the Claude, the US government restrict the Claude model, and so we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. So these are some things that we should really take consideration, and not to risk too much on your dependency or your business models.